toughness and low entitlement have always been key competitive weapons for me. Have you ever felt that you were a little different? Me too. My father was an ex-Catholic priest who had a PhD in theology, spoke multiple languages, and read a book a day. My mom was a hardworking, oldest of 9 with a master's in English and an ex-Catholic nun. My brother went to the #1 high school in the world, Phillips Exeter Academy, and my sister went to Harvard. Then there was me, the dyslexic middle child, super confident with a chip on my shoulder, so I got into a lot of fights. I love sports and being on a team. It took a while, but I got my degree. I knew early on that my path would be unorthodox, and I needed to learn from the brilliance around me and to develop my own hard-hitting instincts. Now, after 25 years transforming Fortune 500 companies, I'm sharing how I became half monk and half hitman to help others to be balanced high performers in business and in your life. Hi guys, John Hunter here with HunterX. And today I'm going to comment and talk a little bit about a LinkedIn post I did that got a bunch of buzz, just a lot of visits, a lot of commentary, stirred up some emotion. I believe the name of it was Eat What You Kill, but really the subtitle was What is a Hard Day Today? So I'll read a little bit of it and some of the comments, but the reason I wrote it was I was talking to some young sellers, doing some coaching, and I was listening to how hard it was to do a bunch of Zoom calls in a day and how hard it was to take sales training for an hour or whatever it was per week. And it just kind of brought me back to 1994, at the beginning of my career. And, and I wrote about it and it touched a nerve in a lot of people. Before I go through it, it's key, as you will find with a lot of my material and lessons, it's just one way. It's not always the right way. It's a point in time reference. It's a sharing. It's very rarely black and white in my world. Go and do that, or this was all great, and wish we had that. It's usually context based, lesson learned. And so all I did in this particular writing article post was sit there and reflect on what it was like at 24 years old to get into the technology sales business. And what seemed really hard then. Is it still hard? And so, for example, I wrote, our Charles Wong, our CEO, remember now, back then, 1994, email was on a mainframe terminal. So it's different. So you got to take it in context. We would have email terminals. You would come into the office and you would really be using email or the computer systems to talk internally, get approvals, write up orders. It wasn't like it is today. But the point of view, the reference, the idea of your CEO saying, hey, we're going to turn email off during selling hours because being in front of the customer is so important that we're not going to allow you to be distracted. So we're going to shut the whole system down. I'm hoping when people read that today, as a leadership team or as a seller, just take inventory of where you're spending your time. I mean, how much time are we spending internally on nonsense that's not moving the needle on our businesses, no matter what your business is? It's always good to have a pulse on what your employees are doing. How hard is it to be an employee? How complex is it? So my CEO turned off the email during selling hours. My CEO, who I grew up with, and I'm sure was very impressionable then, right? You're 24 years old. It's an eat what you kill, meaning you get paid for performance, and you're out of there if you don't perform, and a lot of goodness to that and a sense of urgency, et cetera. A lot of bad in that as far as developing people and treating people fairly. But I think everyone understands that. So really didn't like a lot of complexity in the sales process. Donuts to the data center, 6 a.m. New hire training was 4 weeks, and you didn't leave. And of course, a lot of the comments coming in were like, well, it's barbaric, or that's old school. I think old school is the interesting one to me. I'm not so sure how old school it is to make sure our employees are properly trained, that our commitment levels to each other and to the company are extremely high, and that we are doing what it takes to be a successful employee. Now, obviously, COVID-19 and different generations thinking, there's clearly other ways to solve that problem. But this was the reality. And as you can tell from the post, not just CA Technologies environment, it was a lot of companies, software companies in particular, were like, hey, this is the way it's going to be. I did once get an email. This is years later at 2 o'clock in the morning, giving me a gratitude moment for working. So my boss's boss at that time saw me because he could see which computers were on. So he made the assumption that I was working at Friday. I think it was a Friday at 2 a.m. And the reason I share that, I was at a point in my career where I was out working. I was trying to outwork my problems, and I was going from sales director, I think, somewhere in there, to VP. And as I became more educated on how to scale, I clearly look back on little things like this. Hey, your boss's boss tells you, way to go. You're working your ass off. I knew I could count on you because you're available at 2 a.m. You're going to be teaching that, and you're going to be role modeling that. And that's going to become your new normal. Hey, work till 2 a.m. is how you get ahead. And obviously, for those who are wondering, I am not supporting that. I don't have my employees to do that. I don't advocate you do that. I have a lot of work on, and I'll be writing and delivering in the podcast around balance and the importance of understanding balance. But that's what I grew up with. You just, vacation is another one. It's become more and more understood, the power of taking vacation. But the way we looked at vacation, and to a certain extent, I still do, and a lot of leaders do, is you need to treat your vacation, your time away from work, as if you're running your own business. So you may be able to take 2 weeks off. It may not be at the end of the quarter. Maybe it's the second week of the first month of the new quarter. I don't think that's an unreasonable gesture to be thinking as a general manager or an owner of your own business about how you're going to think about taking time off, because that if I'm not, involved in the business, certain things won't get done. The problem with that as a leader, it means that you're not supporting the staff underneath you. You're not learning to delegate. You're not learning to build a machine so you can be away. But it was just unheard of. As a matter of fact, absolutely unheard of to be gone at the end of a quarter, last week of a quarter. It's just unheard of. When I worked at OpenText, I put an out of office. I put a meeting invite for the end of quarter cadence. What we're going to be doing for the last week of the last month of a quarter. And I got a bunch of out of office emails, and I absolutely lost my collective shit. I went nuts. I had someone come into my office and just say, hey, John, we've never heard that before. And I calmed down and I regrouped. And the lesson was to go through with these folks, educate them, everyone on the importance of being around, culture, teamwork, winning, and we got it going from there. But obviously not everybody understood that. You would never be gone for 2 weeks. We talked about that. Minimum work hours is a Joe Sexton lesson, 8 to 6 minimum hours. You never flew during selling hours. Still, by the way, I'm not so sure these are old school at all. I think these are still applicable. If you're not going to put the time into your business, it may not be 9 to 6. It may be 6 a.m. It maybe you're in you're digital. Maybe you're selling in the East Coast. You live in the West Coast. There's a variety of things, but the work ethic was the key. Joe is extremely transparent and clear. If you don't put the time in, you won't make it. And a couple of times he had people, going to conference rooms that came in at 9:30. And now, obviously, what have we learned with work from home and other examples, that you could be working your tail off at home. So find a different way to check in with your employees. Find a way to make sure you delineate and discuss what good looks like. But having an expectation of the reality of all these jobs, that it takes a certain amount of effort, I think that's important. being in customer lobbies, I posted something about this on another post about activity levels and getting badged in. And someone said, well, that's old school. It's digital today, COVID. You know, Obviously, I understand that. Been running a sales force, thousands of people over the phone through the pandemic last year, and I understand that. But the principles still apply. How do I put myself in a position to get the attention of my buyer when they're going to get distracted? It could be their EA. It could be a clever way to get them on phone. It's getting away from text messaging and other less effective communication techniques. Getting badged in, getting digitally badged in, still something that's doable. Getting badged in is a sign that you've built trust with your customer. So I just want to clear the air. Some of this stuff, yeah, it's what happened as we grew up, but these were also forward-leading indicator activities that led to success. That's what I want you to take away from this. Not getting emotional about a point in time. Yeah, Gartner Magic Quadrant didn't mean much. The brands that you were in, the cultures that you were in, you were expected to outsell your competitors. You couldn't bring back the excuse of, well, they're in the Magic Quadrant, we're not, therefore I'm allowed to lose. I had a funny story working at BMC where they had gone down a little bit in the Magic Quadrant. For those of you who remember, the Magic Quadrant is the Gartner depiction of how you rank on your technology. And I've never really been top right best product in the market. So, it's all about perspective, and it's all about authenticity, and it's all about low entitlement. So my story to the BMCers was, be careful, you're talking to a guy who's never been in the Magic Quadrant. So I'm thrilled that you're in there. You're a little bit below service now, but you know what? I'll take it. So think about the attitude. Attitude is everything. All these crazy reorgs we used to go through over a weekend. I clearly do not advocate that. But it's funny how many sometimes with current corporate environments, you see people just taking weeks, months, quarters, even years to make decisions. I think one of the positive takeaways of some of those early day antics was, hey, we're going to bring the people in, we're going to work the weekend, we're going to make key decisions, and we're going to move on. So obviously you don't have to do that over the weekend. You don't have to hurt a bunch of people, but being decisive is something that we were at that particular point. I think it's something that's still valued in corporate culture. Anyway, lastly but not least, and a bunch of points in here, I just want to speak to a few of them. Quota carriers were the only ones I went to club. Now, I've been part of multiple sales forces. There's all kinds of different cultural aspects to club and reward trips. Matter of fact, some companies have actually built out reward trips for non-salespeople because we want other employees. Some people call them president's clubs and want to open the umbrella. You can find the value in all of it. A lot of it comes down to cost. A lot of it comes down to culture. I'm simply saying at one point in time, the cultural objective was to hire the best and brightest and to spend an exorbitant amount of money, just a shitload of money on winners, their spouses. We're talking 25 to 35 grand to go to Bora Bora. So we wanted, as a strategic weapon, to have such ridiculous club trips, reward trips, that we could get the best sellers, because we're going to give them a bunch of adversity. It wasn't easy. It was going to be hard. And hard is really what the post was all about. And I do think it is important to stimulate some emotion between us. I'm not advocating we go back to all these things, but I am advocating, I'm not so sure how hard a day, 4 Zoom calls in a row, is in context. I think we can get better at training. I think we can still build resolve and toughness and commitment and have millennials and Gen Zs and Gen Xers all on the same team. I think we'll have to do it through leadership, a lot of empathy, but toughness and low entitlement have always been key competitive weapons for me, and it's something I'd ask you to consider. That's the message today. What is a hard day was the name of the post. Maybe go and read it. Love your thoughts and feedback. This is HunterX, John Hunter, signing off. Talk to you soon.